leading up to writing my show, I was incredibly frustrated. Um, there was the recession.
Yeah.
It was happening after 2008. There was a recession. Things had just gotten, I had booked a lot of things. I was doing really good work, like really proud of the shows I was getting. And then, like a show that was supposed to go to Broadway and I was going to like have my Broadway debut and all this stuff didn't happen. And so it was hard for a while. I was also turning 30 and thinking, okay, what do I look like? Who am I? What's going
Mm,
on? What's my type? And
yeah.
so it was very exciting to write something that was just me.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Writer Real Talk interview series, where I sit down with originating artists of all varieties, not just writers, but yes, writers as well. Today, we have on my very good friend of a decade, Jacque Carnahan. Hi,
Ooh,
Jacque.
hello.
Thank you for being here.
Oh
This is
my gosh, thank you for
wonderful.
asking me, of course.
I mean, with the amount that the two of us have talked in our lives, we can go on for years. This is
You
this
could
is
probably just do the interview for me.
Oh, that would be no fun. I feel like we should be sitting in my car though, and we should be driving to Long Island as we do this interview.
Yes, private
Absolutely.
profile only.
So Jackie and I, we met because we were both teaching at a studio on Long Island, and since then our collaboration has gone through all different types of varieties. Um, and Jackie is I met Jackie as a teacher, an educator, specifically a dance teacher and musical theater teacher, and also as a performer. But since then, I've known her for so many other things as well, including, the artistic director of a company that puts on a gigantic Broadway concert. What? And also as a writer, a collaborator. But we'll get there later. But for the audience, would you mind giving us a little bit of sense of who you are and how you identify as an artist?
Yeah, totally. I grew up dancing. First thing I started doing was dancing and then singing with my dad. And once I figured out that you could do both, I thought, wait, what's that? Yeah, so I went to Boston Conservatory for musical theater. Um, Majored in musical theater, like I said. Let's see. And then for like the first 10 years in New York, I was pretty much hitting it hard, auditioning for musicals. I did national tours, some off-Broadway shows, a lot of regional shows. And then in 2011, I wrote a one-woman show about pursuing musical theater. Yes, my
Mhm.
autobiography on
So good.
stage, if
I
you
love
will.
it.
And I performed that show for performing arts students to give them kind of a taste of what it's like to do the thing.
Mhm.
And that little show has then blossomed into a lot of different educational events, like Arts for Autism that I produce at the Gershwin, and many other things that we do, workshops, master classes, and all of that. That's like, there it is in a nutshell.
That was pretty good. That was very
Yeah,
condensed.
I tried. Yeah.
For those of
Yeah.
you keeping score at home, the Gershwin is referring to the Gershwin Theater where Wicked plays on the Broadway. And
Yeah.
there have been how many live concerts at this point?
So we've done the show live 5 times. We did one virtual show during the pandemic. So
Yes.
it should be seven. One year we skipped entirely. Next year we had to do virtual. Then we were finally back in person last June.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah,
So it
glorious.
started 7 years ago. Yeah.
My goodness, time really
Mhm.
moves way too fast.
Yeah.
Um, Well, great. Thank you again for coming on in. We're gonna dive into some fun questions here before we get to our main topic, or should I say topics? Because we've got a few picked out. We'll see where conversation takes us.
Yeah.
Um, but my first question for you is, since this is a writer-focused channel,
Yeah.
is
Totally.
there a musical? I think I also know the answer to this, but is there a musical theater writer or the work of a particular writer or writing team that you gravitate toward the most as an artist?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to sound like a complete cliche because any actor who is a singer wants to do Sondheim.
Well, of course.
That's just how it is. Um, so I mean, when it comes to true musical theater, I would say that he is definitely my favorite composer to sing, to
Mm,
do, to act. But I mean, they all have some great songs. Come on,
I do.
Stephen Schwartz is an incredible person and gave me one of my biggest shows I got to do. So I've got to call him out as an
Uh-huh.
incredible writer.
What was that show?
Um, I did The Baker's Wife.
And that was
Yeah,
at
at Paper
Paper
Mill.
Mill? That's
Yeah, at Paper Mill. And he just was a guest at Arts for Autism last June. So that relationship, that was in 2005 that I did The Baker's Wife at Paper Mill. And then we did it a few years later at the York Theater. So that was like my first off-Broadway show, which was really cool. And then all these years later, he was so generous to come and play at the Gershwin for Arts for Autism with us on stage. So definitely have to
which
give some love to Stephen.
you must. Oh my,
Yeah.
that was such a magical moment, Jackie, with
Okay.
with him at the piano. Oh my God. I just it was unexpected. I was delighted. He was so generous. You could see in his face as he's playing. He's just giving to the
He
singers.
was he was thrilled to be there. Yeah. He told me backstage, he said, I need to do more of this. This is really what it's about.
Wow.
It
He
was
seems
very,
like
very
such a
nice.
sweet human.
Yeah. 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 It was great. Yeah.
And you've also performed in Stephen Sondheim's work as well, right?
I
Professionally?
have. Yes. I did a little night music.
Hmm. And
Mm-hmm.
that was down south somewhere, right?
Yeah, that was at Baltimore Center Stage. Baltimore
Great.
Center Stage. Yeah, I did night music there. I don't think have I done it. I actually, that's sad to say that he's my favorite composer, and that's the only one I've done professionally. But I think it is. I did "Anyone Can Whistle" at Boston Conservatory,
Uh-huh.
but I'm pretty sure that might be the only two I've actually done. Got to
Well,
work on that. Got to work on that.
but this is a thing. This is a trend I've noticed with performers and writers both. So, it's no secret on this channel. Stephen Sondheim is my favorite of the
Yeah, I mean,
writers for
come
so many
on.
reasons,
Mhm.
but I've never been in a Sondheim show.
It's so weird, right? Well,
Ever.
they don't get done as much,
They don't.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
except for Broadway right now.
Right now. Yeah, but it's not as common. I want to give a shout out to Lucy Simon too for writing like the best role I've ever played. How about that?
That is, yeah, okay. And what was that role?
Martha in Secret Garden.
There it
I mean, how
is.
can, yeah.
That is such a good role.
Yeah. And thank you, yeah, for strong female, huge big song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I love it. I love it. These are such wonderful writers to be talking about and wonderful shows.
Yeah.
And if we have time, maybe I'll pick your brain a little bit more about being in night music because that's a hard show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we could talk about that.
Um, but I want to move to so this is a two-sided question. And I know you talk about this at least in a certain context in your one-woman show, but
Mm.
it has been, I think, several years since the current end of that show, right? Where does that
Mhm.
show end in your timeline?
The show ends with producing Arts for Autism
The first time.
the first time.
Okay.
Yeah. It kind of becomes because Arts for Autism is something that I produce every year, it sort of feels like a fresh ending every time because it's a current thing that happens all the time. But when it happened the first time is when I changed the ending.
Got it. Great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's been several years since you made that change.
Yeah.
So the two sides of this question are what have you seen as being your greatest challenge thus far in your career? And you can take all aspects of your career or you can focus it.
Mhm.
And what on the other side have you seen as your greatest success?
Hmm. I think that probably what I'm going to say is my greatest challenge in life, because I think that our lives mirror our careers mirror our lives.
Yeah.
And it's the issue of control. I
Mm,
think I, you know, I think because it has maybe something to do with starting out as a dancer. I very much was brought up to believe that if you just do all the right things and you work hard enough and you learn all of the techniques and you do, like you take the next step, that then the results will be what they should be, right? And I think that's something that's hard for any actor is that's not always the case. You can give the best audition of your life and not get it. And that can happen over and over again. And that I think was the hardest thing for me is the lack of control that
Mm.
I couldn't just force it to happen for myself, certain shows, certain milestones. So that I think, but then what's interesting about it is that I think that that independence that I was seeking became my greatest strength because then I wrote my own show and started producing my own work because I was so over it.
Yeah.
you know yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, you can only get told like, oh my gosh, you were amazing, but they went with someone who was blank so many times until you're like, how about I just be amazing doing what's right for me?
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay, so I can say several things about this because that's you bring up fantastic points here. I think
Mhm.
that the control conversation is going to resonate highly with the writers in the audience as well because being a performer and a writer, like I see how ridiculously similar these situations are because you can be so talented or you can have such a phenomenal show and yet the no's just keep piling up nonetheless.
It's hard.
And
Hmm.
also I'd love to talk about the Switch. We can talk about it more. We can wait till later. But there are so many writers. I think, especially over the past 3-ish years of pandemic,
Hmm.
who were performers who said, "Well, nothing's happening, so,"
Right.
and then wrote their own stuff.
Hmm.
Which I love. I think that's fantastic. But that's a really big, difficult, and also exciting and elating sort of switch to be making. Uh, what did it feel like to make that decision?
For me,
Yeah.
um it felt great, honestly. It I think that sometimes in these conservatory programs where you get laser focused, you forget, at least I forgot, all the other aspects of my creativity. It was like, I'm doing musicals, that is it. And I didn't allow room for other things, which in a lot of ways I think can be positive because you have to be laser focused to achieve anything in this business. So I don't think that that was a bad thing. But I do think that I forgot that like I used to do creative writing in high school and like I
Yeah.
did some like open mics doing poetry in college and was like, my mom is like, you were published in the Boston Conservatory, like little whatever it was, creative writing short stories book or whatever it was. I'm
So
like, mom, this
cool.
is so not a big deal. Like I was like, shut up, mom, this is not a big deal, you know. But I just kind of like put those other sides of myself to the side. And so I was leading up to writing my show, I was incredibly frustrated. Um, there was the recession.
Yeah.
It was happening after 2008. There was the recession. Things had just gotten, I had booked a lot of things. I was doing really good work, like really proud of the shows I was getting. And then, like a show that was supposed to go to Broadway and I was going to like have my Broadway debut and all this stuff didn't happen. And so it was hard for a while. I was also turning 30 and thinking, okay, what do I look like? Who am I? What's going
Mm,
on? What's my type? And
yeah.
so it was very exciting to write something that was just me. And I didn't have to pretend to be anybody else. I didn't have to fit in anybody else's box.
Yeah.
It was just me. The songs were in the keys that I wanted. I choreographed the dance. I could cut it if I wanted on a day. Like it was just,
Yeah.
so and the process of writing it was so fun too. It was just creative in a totally different way. And yeah. So I know I sounded insane. I think it might have started, I don't know. I think I was dating somebody at the time, and I think I like woke up one day and I was like, I'm writing a book. They thought I was insane. It's like, yeah, I'm writing, I'm doing something. And then over the course of that summer, it turned into what it then became. I didn't know what the idea was. It went from like a book to like Jackie's Cabaret Happy Hour, where I was gonna like have guests and just like sing fun songs. It wasn't gonna have a story at all. And then finally it became what it became.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about though. That whole like something here needs to change.
Yeah.
You still wanted to tell stories and you just found a new avenue to do it that made you happier,
Yeah.
brought in more of your creativity, made you feel more
Hmm.
free,
Yeah.
and ultimately led
Well,
you to so much more.
yeah, and it created a job for me because that was also the goal. Like I really had a very specific goal with this show in mind. I, we're doing all kinds of free stuff, free, which
Tell
is
me about
great.
it.
Everybody needs actors to help them with their work, and all of that is
Mhm.
wonderful. I've still done it past this time, of course. But at that point in my life, I was like, I have put in so much time, so much dedication. I want to get paid for my art. Like, I just
Yeah.
want to get paid. And so I had a very specific process to what I was writing and who I was writing it for.
Hmm.
Right.
And who is the
I
audience? Oh, go
so
ahead.
yeah, so students, so like prospective like musical theater performers. So like we do anything from middle school through high school, drama groups, choirs, dancers, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I do want to give a shout out to two musical theater writers who were influential in helping me with the show. Actually, Tim Rosser was the first, at the time, music director type person who I went to say I'm writing this show. And I really have to give him credit because he was such a great guy. And he was really honest with me. He was like, Jackie, I don't think I'm the right person to write this with you.
Hmm.
And
That's a
that
skill to
was,
know that.
yeah, and it was really, really kind and honest of him just be like, you know what? I just don't think that I can help you do what you need to do, right? So then I took it to Barbara Anselmi, who I'm sure people know from It Should Have Been You, and she was the one that turned it into the story that it needed to be as far as she asked the right questions. The first thing she said to me was, "Well, how did you end up in this moment? Tell me a story."
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was the first thing I needed. I told her this one first story and she goes, okay, more of that. Let's put that in the show.
Okay. So there are so many things about this that I love. Two things I want to just like point out for the audience playing at home is number one, Jackie wrote and performs a solo show, but did not do it alone. Like this still does not happen in a bubble no matter what, right?
No.
It's all about that collaboration piece. And
Yep.
then also, I've not heard you at any point in this story thus far question whether or not you could be a writer.
I have questioned whether I could be a writer a lot. I think that this particular project, to be honest, I did not define myself as a writer until like you and I started writing a little bit a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I think I just thought like, well, I'm just doing my story. Like it's about me, so it didn't feel like writing.
Wow.
I
You
don't know.
you took your life story and
I
with help shaped it into an actual show,
Yeah,
like with through line and everything, and didn't consider yourself a writer. Wow.
true. Yeah,
Man,
true.
imposter syndrome is a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what though? It's funny, like I don't think I really felt bad about it necessarily. I was just like, oh, but that's just my show.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's so fascinating to
Maybe
me.
because I was like, well, I'm not writing dialogue because I'm just talking how I would talk.
Huh. Yeah.
Which is why when you and I write together, the only way I can write is if I act like I'm playing the character and say it out loud.
I legit do the same thing.
I can't think of words if I'm not saying it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even when I write alone, like I'm just talking to myself in my room. My roommate's
Right.
like, "You okay in there?"
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
me and my
Yeah.
five pals.
Yeah.
I love that. What a
Oh,
wonderful and rich answer. Yes.
I also just want to give a little credit to Brian Hargrove. He was, I don't know, Caroline in the City. He co-wrote It Should Have Been You with Barbara.
Okay.
He came in at the very end of our writing process and helped restructure the
Mm,
order of the show and
love.
really, the two that he really shaped like how it hits the climax at the right point and what happens next. Like he just kind of like went like, well, this goes here, ta-da.
We love that.
Yeah,
We love
yeah,
having that outside like dramaturgical eye to come in and be like, "Ha,
yeah,
just a little shushing."
yeah,
Um, and I
yeah.
remember seeing your show for the first time
Mm.
and just how delighted I was by the story beats. Like when I won't give anything away because people should see your show. Um, when are you
And
doing it
it's
again?
definitely for kids. It's definitely for kids. It's not the kind of thing that I would go out in New York City and like do it at 54 below or something. It's a little, but it's right for who we do it for, though. I
Sure.
don't know. Do you think that? I don't know.
Well, okay, that's an interesting thought because it was definitely built for that audience, absolutely, and I
Mm,
see why. However, like as a an artist in their 20s at the time I saw your show,
mm,
like I still very much connected to the thing, and also your story is not my story. Like I connect to your story very highly, but it's still different enough, and I didn't exactly know where it was going, even though I knew you quite well when I saw it. So like when the floor drops out from under you,
uh-huh.
like that's still a ouch moment in my
Yeah.
heart. Plus, I don't know, I don't think it's written just for kids. I think when
I've
you
had a
perform
couple
in it,
friends say, I've had a couple friends say, oh yeah, you just need to like throw in a couple F-bombs and then it'll be for adults.
legit though, it's like
Like,
the Jackie After Hours version.
right, right. Yeah. They're like, it's just like squeaky clean, which is what it should be,
Absolutely. Yeah. That's interesting though. Like I've been in the room when these groups with all of their adult tour guides and chaperones and parents are watching your show, and Jackie, everybody's enraptured.
The
Like it's
parents love it. Yeah.
I don't
Especially the
doubt
older I get because we're like the same age now. I'm like the age of the parents.
it. Life happens, things change.
Yeah.
Lovely answer. Thank you for all of that. Um, I'm going to tweak this question a little bit because you do so many things and you wear so many different hats. But do you have a, I'm going to say a performance, whether you were on stage or not? Do you have a performance in your career that you are most proud of being a part of?
Proud of being a part of or proud
Being
of like, hmm.
being a part of or doing or creating or making happen?
Hmm. It's hard to decide. I feel that overall, I was very lucky with the shows I got to do.
Hmm.
I was really proud of the kinds of shows I got to do. Um, you know, nothing wrong with Grease and those kinds of like fun, poppy, silly shows, nothing wrong, so fun. But I was just really lucky. I got lots of artsy stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So like, I mean, one of the first big things I got to do is The Baker's Wife with Alice Ripley, Max von Essen, all these like wild people. I met my mentor slash close friend for all of time, Gay Marshall, doing that show. So there's that, and then night music with the cast that we had was so wonderful and also so hard. I mean, you're getting to do Sondheim. And then I think. I think that as far as I want to say, I do want to mention the most fun I've ever had on stage was in Crazy for You.
Okay.
I know. It's like unexpected. Because I love to tap. And I just tapped my little face off in that show, and it was the most fun I've ever had on stage. Um, and then I was part of the development of one of one of two Pride and Prejudices. And I was
Yes.
really, really proud of getting to work on that project just because it was really fun to do a role that nobody else had done before,
Mm, mm,
and it was just a role that was so me too.
mm.
So it just made it really fun to work on that.
Oh, yeah. I always forget about the Pride and Prejudice piece until you bring it back up. But yeah, I mean, getting to originate something,
Yeah.
there's nothing quite like it. Really
Yeah.
like putting your stamp on the story.
Yeah, and the music was beautiful. Talk about beautiful, beautiful, lush writing.
Mm.
And I mean, and Donalyn Champlin was playing Jane Austen. I mean, you can't get better than having her in a cast with you, you know? So I guess that's what I mean is that a lot of the things I got to do were just really beautiful, lush, legit singing, with these like really incredible caliber casts.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are the standouts.
Those are great. I have to ask, I don't think I've ever asked you this before. What draws you? Because I know that you're drawn to the lush classical sounding musicals that have, more, I hate to use the word depth, but they're deeper than fun, right? They're
Yeah.
fun plus so much more.
Hmm.
What is it that draws you in that direction?
It's a great question. I don't really know. I think part of it, hands down, just has to be how my voice is built.
Mm.
Like, I just like can't go to a Rock of Ages audition. You know what I mean? Like,
Fair.
it's just can't go. Um, so I think, we always like things that we're good at.
Mm.
Um, and I think there has to be also some kind of like classical music. I listened to lots of classical music as a kid. I was exposed to to that, I think through ballet at first when I
Oh
was
yeah.
very young. I mean, I remember listening to like Scheherazade when I was 5. Like, like so I think there's some kind of um and I remember that kind of music being so imaginative for me. I would imagine dances, like choreographed dances, before I was a dancer. I was very, very young to these classical pieces. So it has to have something to do with that.
Wow, that is very interesting. My brain was clicking through like old conversations we've had where you said similar things, but I think without actually hitting on that point directly.
Yeah. I've never really thought about it, to be honest, but I do think that there's just something in me that responds to that big orchestral sound. It just
Mm.
makes my heart like soar. So,
Yeah, yeah, mine too. I mean, my God, I love it. Well, you know how I write. Get out of here.
yeah, yeah.
It's my jam.
Not that I'm not fun. I mean, I love a comedy. Let's be clear.
This is very true. This is
I'm
very
not
true.
like serious Sally here. I'm really not.
to to the point, friends, where Jackie and I are just cracking up in Long Island traffic for hours on our way to and from work. Like her storytelling prowess is fantastic, and her love of fun just keeps it all so delightful.
Oh, thank
Um, you are
you.
funny. You're a funny person.
So funny.
Um, and then one more before we start chatting a little bit more about our main topics. Is there a particular musical, it could be stage or if you saw it in a movie, that you recall making a tremendous impression on you when you were young? Like that thing that either made you like have the light bulb moment of, oh, this is a thing, or I want to
Mm.
do that thing, or something similar.
I'm trying to think. when I was young, if there was that one
Young is
show.
in quotes.
Well, um, I mean, I just like wanted to do it.
Hmm.
My mom always made a joke that if we went to a parade, Jackie didn't want to watch the parade, she wanted to be in the parade. you know? And so I think, because I mean, so much of my young life was about dance.
Mhm.
And then my first musical was The Sound of Music. And I mean, that movie, Julie Andrews, all of it, that was like made a big impression on me.
Yeah.
Still love that show. It's so great. But I do think that there was another side of me because I loved singing so much. I loved dancing so much. And I do think that there was already a side of me that was such a technician and such a like
Mm.
goal setting type person. I remember being like 10 and being like, I have these skills. Like, I have these skills, and I think that this could be something I could do.
That makes so much sense to me. Like
Yeah, like I
100%.
think there was also this like logical part of my brain that was like, well, I can do all those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to say that is, I don't know if people point this out or praise this enough for you, but to know what you're good at and just be comfortable saying that is such a skill that we all need to have. And I've always
Mhm.
admired that you could do that. You're like,
Oh,
I
well,
have this.
I have to constantly remind myself, like, remember that you had confidence when you were 10? Like,
Oh,
oh yeah, oh no. Then the world goes and beats you up.
well, that's true.
So,
Resilience is tough in this business.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you've always been a go-getter. There I do, you don't have to tell it, but I do love that story of you and making your way to get to a certain school at a certain time in your
Mm.
life. That is
Hmm.
a story we can tell another day if we want to. But
Hmm.
like I do admire so much that you've got these big goals, you've got these big dreams, and you're like, great, so how do I do it?
Yeah,
I'm gonna figure it
yeah.
out.
Well, there's that control again. Like,
Mm.
if you're telling me that I can't do it, I'm just going to figure out how.
And that is such a gift to be able to think that way.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. We all need that. Yeah.
We do. We
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
So we've kind of hit on this topic already. So let's just lean in a little more here about the way that your perspective on theater, on the business, on the roles in theater, how the whole thing operates have just changed over time because of the various roles that you have had.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I think that being on the other side of the table, as a producer specifically, really opened my eyes to how much is going on
Mm.
that the actors have no idea what is it's just the amount that is going on. um, really opened my eyes. And I want to say, as a producer and also someone that like employs people too, it shifted how I am an employee. It
Mm.
shifted how I am an actor because taught me, and I'm not saying that every producer is amazing and wonderful and not making mistakes. I mean, I don't, I don't want to sit here and, make actors feel like I'm saying, just shut up and do your work, because that's not at all what I mean. But it did really, um, teach me that you have a specific purpose in this
Mhm.
process. Your job is to do that specific part of it as well as you can. There are 10 gajillion things that are happening that are not about you. And so they really just want you to show up and do your work, and that's it.
Yeah.
And stop worrying so much about your own self and what's going on, because it's not about you.
Yeah.
It is, can't do it without you, cannot. You know,
Right.
I mean, actors are amazing, dancers are, I mean, that job is freaking hard, and we all know there'd be no show without them.
Mhm.
But overall, I mean, I at least am trying to always do my best and to be as clear as possible, as organized as possible. But there is so much that goes on that it's unimaginable once you're finally on that other side. It's really kind of overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm putting a pin in a couple things you said, but to kind of follow up on that, for those who have not yet been on the other side of the table in any capacity, let alone a producerial capacity, could you give a sense of like what other things are on the plate? What other things are you thinking about, or do you have to think about, or take into mind, or maybe
Mhm.
dealing with, but also have to go to rehearsal?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also different because I only have experience producing these one-off benefits, right? I mean, I produce my own show and things like that, but as far as an actual production, I do these one-day events. And so it's I think could potentially be a little bit at a higher stress level than it might be if you had a dedicated team that was, doing in it for the long haul. But you have to manage tons of people.
Mhm.
You have to hope that people want to be a part of the process. So you're managing 10 million different kinds of personalities. You're trying to keep everybody happy, and also you're trying to budget. The budget is incredibly difficult on Broadway. It is so expensive. Um, and yeah, so sorry, I don't know if I'm answering your question. What
You
did you
are absolutely,
ask?
yeah.
Okay. What was it? Okay.
Like what else you're thinking about, right? What
Oh,
are
I
the
mean,
other
you're thinking about
considerations?
literally everything. I mean, you're thinking about, you have to hire everyone.
Mm.
You have to hire everyone.
Yeah.
So, I'm hiring a music director, a director, an associate director, a copyist, orchestrators, arrangers, musicians. You're dealing with whatever team works at the theater you're using. So we
Right.
use the Gershwins. So we're talking to 321 management and all of their team. And so there's their technical team, their lighting, there's all of those people. And then for us, I'm dealing with the students that are coming to perform and their teachers and their parents and like their choreographers. And we're working on their pieces and their costumes and their this and their song choices. And then you're thinking about the order of the show and the flow of the show. Then you got to get a host. And then you haven't even gotten a single Broadway performer to be on stage yet. So then you have to, to reach out to all of those people and pray they say yes and they don't get sick and they
Yeah.
like, so it's just the amount of people that you
Mhm.
need to get together for one goal on one day and everybody be on board and thrilled to be there. It is a lot.
Yeah.
Then you got to sell the tickets and make the program and then and then you got to advertise and you got to do like it's just the list just goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're right that it is potentially higher stress and harder than a major show, like long running show, because you
Yeah.
are the jobs you just mentioned, and this
There
doesn't
are
even
people I know, like I do all
like
it's like
you are producer, you are company manager, you are general manager, you are marketing team, you
right,
are like
right.
you are delegating only all that you can, but only the things that you know will go well if
Yeah,
delegated.
right.
Oh, plus you're ordering the show. You're making sure that the quality control is there. Like, hmm. So
Yeah.
yes,
And
go
I've had
forward. You're doing great.
and then I'm in the show. So
And then you're in the show. Yeah.
yeah, so it's a lot, and so taking on all of that and realizing what is going on removed any sort of, it just softened my approach to anyone who's producing, directing, etc. On the one hand, it softened. On the other hand, I think when I see things going really poorly, it hardened it.
Yeah.
It made me think like, actually, no, you need to get it together.
Yep.
And I do my best. I mean, I didn't have any experience on how to do this kind of thing. I
Yeah.
literally figured it out on my own, on like through doing.
Uh-huh.
So I know I've made mistakes.
We all do.
We all do. And so, you just do the best you can with what you have to work with. And you try to be as kind and respectful as you can during the process.
Of course. Yeah.
So,
Not to I'm not diminishing writers' jobs when I say this, but like listening to the amount of things that have to fall into place for you to have taken an idea of a concert and made that concert a reality, it just makes me like for a moment have perspective on the writing piece and be like, oh, you can sit down and you can write 10 pages. Like that's a dream that's not like you just have to go to your computer and do it. Like, you know, because what you're talking about is at a gigantic scale in order to
yeah.
tell a story to a specific audience for a specific cause, and that is like niching down, but at the highest level of performance, and that is commendable, truly
Thanks.
commendable.
We try, we do our best. And I will say the team that we had last year really, really, I love them and they're
Great
back. I'm
team.
really excited they're back. Yeah. So I feel like we really found our stride with a team that feels committed to the process. And so maybe there won't be as much changeover, as much learning curve in the future. We'll see. One day show, people can't commit for their lives, but
Okay.
hopefully they will for
Yeah.
a while, so yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Last year I told this to you right after the show, but I said that was one of my top two favorite concerts. I just thought it was so smooth and wonderful. The storytelling was lovely. Like I was in for the ride and enjoying myself, and also got to see some of the behind the scenes of the process the day before, and everything just it
Yeah.
felt good. Felt real
Good.
good. And
Yeah,
I'm
it
happy to
did.
hear they're
It
back.
did. It was a journey to get there, but it did. It felt good.
It's always a journey.
It
Uh,
was-
um, taking the pin back out of that thing you said before, when you said that like thought process, that realization for actors of like come in, do your job, you don't have to think so hard about the rest, right?
Mhm.
What that reminded me of was the first time that I was professionally on the other side of the table as a musical director was so eye-opening about the process. Like watching auditions from the standpoint of like, oh, I'm gonna be helping to cast this. Like I understood so much more about how how much do things actually matter in the room. It's like really nothing matters in the room. Just like be a nice person who we want to work with, come in and we'll hear the potential and then you leave. Like
Yeah,
I
totally.
mind blown. And then
Mhm.
working with performers from the other side of the table too. I don't know if you've experienced this, but that I was so excited to go back to performing and be in their shoes again because I was like, oh, this can be so much more fun and less stressful than I've made it in the past.
Yes. Yes. The the biggest, this is not exactly what you're talking about, but after doing the one woman show for so long, when I went back in to do any kind of audition, I thought, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, this is like so easy. It's 16 bar. It's a song,
Yeah.
one song. Like I now, when I perform, most of the time I'm like doing an hour show by myself. And so to do a little audition is like no big deal.
No, not at all. And it's
Yeah,
fun. And it should be fun. Right?
right.
You get to go do a thing that you enjoy doing for a moment.
Right. Yeah.
It's the rest around it that makes
It's
audition
the
hard, of
rest.
course.
It is. It's the rest around it. Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I Man, you and I haven't talked a lot since I've shifted the way I do my vocal coaching and added some new things in there. But one of the things I constantly talk about with people who are bringing me stuff for their auditions is like, don't don't forget, and the writers, I promise this is gonna apply. Don't forget that the thing on the paper is telling part of a story, but you have to tell the full story. But the main thing that we're looking for on the other side of the table is like, who are you in that story? Just like, you tell me a thing that's directly from you, even though you didn't write the words.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
Mm-hmm.
those are those beautiful moments in the audition room when you see someone come in, they're just like, they're gonna tell you a thing, and you may laugh, you may cry, you don't know, but you're interested because it's taking you on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
We're going
Yeah.
somewhere.
And they may do something in a way that you never heard it
Yeah.
before. Mm-hmm.
Or in a
Yeah.
way that's just like it catches something. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what to say. I would like that moment when I look up from the paper because like
Mm-hmm.
something caught my ear or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you had mentioned before. I don't know if you want to get into any of the details of this, but you had mentioned before how expensive it is for something on the Broadway.
Oh,
And I think we've all noticed over the past couple of decades the increasing rise of cost of doing this business, and that trickles down to audience members and the ticket price. But I would say, and I'd love your perspective on this because you've been doing things during the pandemic. I've noticed that things have gotten worse during the pandemic with cost, and I'd love to just get what are your thoughts on what's happening, where we headed, what sustainability is like here?
yeah. I mean, great question. Again, we do one event on Broadway a year, so I'm certainly
Mhm.
not sitting here like producing the next Hades Town or whatever,
Sure.
but um it is wildly expensive. I will just say that. I don't know if actors get that because they've never seen the spreadsheet, but I have. And it's unbelievable how much it costs. And so I don't know if there is going to be a shift in how we are able to pay for things, I don't know. New York City real estate. Um, this is not to say anything against union crews or anything against a union in any way, but I mean, we pay double time on a Monday at the
Oh,
Gershwin
right. Yeah.
for our crew, and it's just a concert, and it costs more than the theater. It
Yeah, that makes sense.
it costs well, way more than the theater. So it's very expensive. I don't know what the plan is. I think that I do see a trend of these limited engagements seem like a trend that
Hmm.
feels safer, because as a producer, I would feel much more confident knowing this is it. You get your 12 weeks, buy your ticket now, because I want to sell out, and I'm not going to wait for you to hum and haw. And then when I announce a closing notice, you go buy your ticket that last week.
Right.
Like, I do think that that is a good strategy that some shows are using
Mm,
by saying limited engagement and then extending if they're selling.
sure.
I
So
think that is actually smart. I don't know if that's what we want. I don't know what we want, but it is an issue.
it is. And so the limited engagement thing is interesting because pre-pandemic, y'all don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was Ken Davenport's office had done a study on the recouping rates of star vehicle shows, of short engagement shows,
Mm.
and of long running original and long running based off of a big property.
Oh, that's
And
interesting. Uh-huh.
these may have been separate studies and I'm just shoving together, but if I recall correctly, the short engagement shows were not recouping because they are so short. Like, even if they
Right, because
sell well.
right, right. I mean, I think with Into the Woods, they had no set. Like they had, I think it was probably, but they had a star cast, so I have no idea. I don't know, I don't know what they did, but
And
they
a
were able
rotating
to,
star cast.
yeah, yeah, and they were able to extend, extend, and extend to make that money back. Yeah,
And to be fair, that started off not as a Broadway show,
right, right.
which I'm kind of loving this rebirth of that model. Like, because this
Mhm.
is what the off-Broadway model
Happened
was
before.
originally.
Yeah. Hmm.
And now we're seeing that again. I mean, Merrily had its off-Broadway short run, sold out
That had
within
to be
minutes.
planned. I
And
swear
then,
that was planned. They knew that.
yeah,
You're not putting Harry Potter in a musical off Broadway without some plans. I'm sorry.
I think you're probably right.
Come on.
But even so, I do think it's like if you are able to do something in that realm, which it's so expensive to do theater in New York these days, that's really hard to do something smaller than Broadway with the hopes of transferring to Broadway, right? That's still everyone likes to do the out of town route. But I would love to see a resurgence of a way to make that sustainable, where we can
Yeah.
be doing shows here and then see them move.
Yeah. I do not know the answer.
I wish you did. Wish you could
I'm
just
sorry.
grant us the secret.
I don't. I really don't know the answer. Yeah.
It would be great to see more shows lasting longer in this moment. But alas, we seem to be at a period of time where that is tough, particularly
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. I know. I think that we're still in a transition.
Mm.
I think we're still in a transition coming out of the pandemic, which seems strange, but I do think that just like the tourism industry in New York is still in a transition.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of change that's still happening, and unfortunately, it's happening during this. You know, there is a lot of inflation, and so people are watching their money. So I think it's just. I do think that Broadway will find its way,
I hope so.
but there's some growing pains right now.
Yeah, and I think they're gonna last for a while because we are also working under a model that is, it's a good question whether this model was ever financially sustainable to begin with, but
No. Yeah. I mean, everyone loses money. I know. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I will say, just for a little optimism, that the travel agency that I work with that sells my show is wildly busy.
oh, good.
They're gonna have their best year yet, probably.
Wow.
So people are out, people are going. I
Good.
The amount of tours to New York is lower. So we just need to get New York back on that list of top destinations. It needs to
Yeah.
get back on the top destination list.
Yeah, we took a big hit with, well, I mean, obviously we took a really big hit with the beginning of COVID, but I think that New York's image hasn't quite recovered from that.
There needs to be an image recovery, 100%. Yeah.
I went to see Kimberly Akimbo last weekend.
Loved it.
Oh my God, my
Did you
heart.
like it?
Yes, I did. It got me in all the unexpected ways, my feels, and then I was just like, oh my God, I'm rethinking my life. Also, like, great work, everybody.
Yeah. So good.
That theater, that was the first time I noticed sitting there and looking around that everyone I could see or hear sounded like they were from New York or the greater New York area.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, so at least we're getting some people commuting back in,
Oh yeah.
which is nice
Mm-hmm.
because we're
Mm-hmm.
talking January. Like,
Yeah.
everything's dead in January. So
Right.
that's okay.
Good.
That's a thing. I have
Mm-hmm.
hope.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think there's a reason to not have hope, but I do think that, we just need to keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Um, And speaking of hope, you're someone who I know has found a way to keep positivity in pretty much everything you do ever all the time. And
Okay, all the time.
well,
But it
fair
is
enough. We all have our
purpose.
moments.
It is purposeful, yes.
It is. And I was just curious, is there anything I don't want to say necessarily advice, but how do you manage that for yourself? Especially in this business that is so hard. Like what we do is
Yeah.
really, really difficult.
It is, yeah. And I have my dark days. Let's not, pretend
Yeah.
that I'm
Yeah.
just like blessed with this ability to be fine all the time. But no, I think that what I strive to do is if you are putting out a positive, authentic self, you're making the world better.
Mm.
I just think that if you are the type that's going to linger in whatever is going on, you're not really putting good into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot to be upset about, right? Um, there's just been a lot for everyone to be upset about. And I just am trying to kind of like continue to shine a light
Mm.
because I think that that results in more good ultimately.
Yeah, it's a very tough thing to balance when like feelings are valid.
Real.
Everyone's got
Totally.
big feelings
Totally.
and for good reasons.
Totally.
But
Yes.
yeah, I've also been thinking about this a lot is how do we then also take what we can and make for some sort of positivity in the world or continue creating, continue doing and
Yeah.
connecting.
Yeah, I've always felt like I am the type of person that has one foot very solidly in the ground of like what life really is, right?
Mm.
The reality, right? But then an ability to have the other foot in, well, what if it was better? In that world, right? But look at all that is good. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you are looking at all that is good and you're living in a place of noticing what's good, you're going to make yourself better, you're going to make those around you better, and you're going to put that positive light and that optimism and that joy and that hopefulness in the world, and all of that is going to make the hard truths better.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
don't know. That's what I try to do, that's what I try to do, because if you're out there constantly focusing on the negative, you're not helping.
Right. If it never
You're
goes
not helping.
beyond.
I think that people think they're helping sometimes, but you're often not.
Mhm. Yeah.
You're not making it better, you know?
Yeah, it's we have these feelings, we recognize the negative, we see what needs changing. So what comes after you have your feeling and what's the next step? And obviously we will have more feelings and we'll come back to this place, but we can't just linger here.
Yeah.
Um
And I also try to think very specifically about like your circle. I
mm,
think people get really broad and that's okay. We're all different. I'm not, this is not the only way, this is just me.
right.
But I think people get really broad with like what they're upset about and what they're, on all the things. And I wonder if you were to focus on the people you see every day,
Mm, mm,
community that you're in every day, and the
community.
family that you're in every day. And if you just make that your focus and make that good, you're actually doing a lot that is tangible to
Yep,
make the world better.
yep. And it will have an effect beyond what you are actually able to do yourselves, right? Because other people will see what's happening, see what you're doing, see the vibe that you have, what your community is doing, and it
Mhm.
radiates.
Mhm. Hmm.
I think about this a lot. I mean, this is very similar to what we do even in the feedback process in the collective. Very specifically, after someone shares a piece of work, which is such a vulnerable thing, right? And
Yeah.
everyone has a lot of feelings about sharing work. The first
Yeah.
thing we do after the artist gets to share those feelings, we start with the feelings, is then we all affirm what's good. Like,
Yeah.
here are the things that are working. Here are the things that are moving you toward your goal already. Like, take stock. Here's the good stuff.
Yeah.
Now from there,
Hmm.
what other questions do you have? And let's
Right.
help you get there.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we have to acknowledge the inside, but always with an eye toward that good.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is something that you taught me without meaning to teach me.
Mm.
There, because I had the joy of watching Jackie teach for a long period of time from behind the piano, which was great. But I always very much admired as I was sitting there, because I was taught an environment that was very much like find the negatives, and just watching you be like, this loved it, and then like and and there was just something about that feeling that I remember taking notice of early on and being like, oh, okay, there are other ways to do this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was taught in a very, I mean, no, I had some pretty harsh teachers for sure. Wonderful teachers. I think that, you get a lot out of those teachers that expect,
Mm,
a lot. But there's no reason to be afraid. There's no reason to be afraid and to feel belittled by any kind of teacher or,
mm,
you know, anybody in that kind of authoritative position, director, choreographer, any of that. I think there is zero room for that in a
good.
creative space.
Yeah,
So
we're all here to do a thing and to do it together. And
it's theater.
yeah,
Could we please just, this is supposed to be a fun day. Like,
it's just a theater show.
we got to get it right, but we can do that with kindness and joy.
Absolutely, yeah. Because
Mhm.
ultimately, what are we here to do? We're here to connect with each other.
I know. It's like, do you want people shutting down in your room?
No, that's not fun.
Because that's a real thing. You see that all the time in rehearsals where it's just rough. And I do not work that way. I think it's like you want vulnerability from your actors. Well, let's not treat them like crap. How
Oh,
about
amen. Let's not
that?
treat anyone like crap. My
No.
God. We're all human. We have to remember that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, after that lovely little deep nugget of a
I feel like
conversation.
that was a little, I don't know.
Yeah. But, this is something I was excited to talk to you about after we had talked about what we might talk about today, because this is something that I've been hearing a lot about and fielding a lot of questions from people in the industry, especially people who are dipping their toe either back in or in for the first time in a
Mhm.
professional capacity. It's like, but like, what's going on? And what, like, we see all this negativity, there's been all this stuff that feels just unresolved, so what can we do, where do we go? And I think it's an important conversation to have, that like, you can do something. You don't need to be the head of an organization to do it. You can make positive change.
Yeah, I do not have the answer to that. Yeah.
No one does.
No, um, yeah, because I do feel like I have not, I mean, I've been doing a few self tapes here and there. I just, but I do feel like I'm a little bit dipping the toe back in, like you said. So I'm not super familiar with exactly how it's feeling,
Mm,
for actors auditioning and being in the room. I do have friends that have gone and like done some regional shows since we've come back, and there
yeah.
have been some interesting stories.
Mhm. Yes, very.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping that again, I'm just hoping that we're in a transition period that does work itself out. And I think again, this is like you said, you don't have to go run an organization or whatever, this is a very good example of how I'm just trying in my world of people that I
Yeah.
work with and that I hire and that we do. I'm just trying to make that as positive and good and professional as it can be. And hopefully that's me doing my part.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to do the exact same thing. I'm like,
Right.
like if you
Right.
vibe with the stuff we're talking about, like, come on in, come join us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that that's the most effective thing you can do unless you're suddenly crowned, president of the Broadway League. Like, it's
Sick.
like,
I'm in.
what can we do? Yeah. Mhm.
All right. 3 wrap-up questions. You ready?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. First one is Jacque Carnahan. What is your favorite non-musical theater activity? Has
Oh,
nothing to do with musical theater.
oh, anything in water, swimming,
Pool? Ocean?
pool,
River?
for actual swimming, pool,
Okay.
but for like view and sounds, ocean.
View and sound and that smell of the seawater. Ah, my
Yeah.
goodness. Okay, that's a good one. Is there a story? It could be one that you want to write or one that's been written that you want to tell. But is there a story that you really want to do that you have not yet been able to do?
Uh, well, the not yet able, I mean, I'm currently writing something that I'm excited about.
Okay.
I don't know if I've told you about it. I'm
Not.
writing a story about the women in my life,
Oh,
and I
okay.
don't know what it is yet. I very purposefully took the producer hat off when I
Smart.
started to go, let's write an outline. What is this? Huh? I was like, "Rah." It started about my Nana. I did the artist way several times during the pandemic because it was so long. And so one day in my morning pages, I heard my Nana's voice in my head, and I just started writing this story about her, and it has just continued. So yeah, I'm writing that and I'm excited to see what it is. I don't know what it is. Is it a collection of short stories? Is it a play? Is it a memoir? I don't know. And I'm not deciding.
That's beautiful. That's great.
What's really fun about it is that when I write in my Nana's voice, it feels like I'm hanging out with her. And she's hysterical, so it's really
Oh,
fun, I'm like, "Oh, Nana, you're so funny," as I write, you know? Yeah,
that is such a beautiful answer, Jacque. I love that so much, and I can't wait to hear more about that at some
yeah,
point when you're willing to share something.
yeah.
That's mm,
We'll see what
mm,
happens. I don't know.
indeed.
Yeah.
Oh. All right, one more, one more. Is there something that you love or are proud of or just enjoy that you don't get to talk about often?
I don't know.
With this question, people either jump in right away with something or they're like, ah!
I have no idea what to say. Um,
hmm hmm
Say it again.
Is there something you love or are proud of or just simply enjoy that you don't get to talk about often?
Gosh, I just don't know.
It's true. You're pretty open with
I
things. Like we
know.
do talk about a lot.
You do. I'm going to answer your question in a weird way.
I love it.
I would say that I, um, I don't know. People don't know. I moved to the Jersey Shore during the pandemic,
Hmm.
and I got weird about social media. I like stopped entirely.
Hmm.
And I have been living an incredibly Instagrammable life. Like, I'm just like so happy with where I am. And like, it's just very like everything around me is so showy offy. Like, it could
Yeah.
be, there's potential to be so like my best life, like, because I'm like at the water all the time and da da da, you know? And so, but I never post about it. And there's a little part of me that's like kind of sad about that because I could really be showing off. But I got weird about, I don't know, maybe I'll rework my relationship with social media and suddenly you'll see like Jackie in front of water every day. But
You
that
know,
is something that I would like to talk about more if I didn't get weird about social media. I don't know.
that's a great answer. I think that's a fantastic answer because I will fully admit to the audience here that I had no idea what kind of best life Jackie was living until I went there
You have
last
to come
year.
see me. Yeah.
And then like she was showing me around. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my
Yeah,
God.
like yeah, like every part of my day could be like, and this adorableness, and this da da da. Like it's just like silly.
It
But
is, but it's
it's all a
wonderful.
secret. It's all a secret.
No one knows. No one knows. No one's seen it.
Yeah. No.
What a wonderful answer. Jackie, thank you so much for spending time and bringing your thoughts and your expertise today. I just so appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, of course. I feel like there were some things you asked that I'm like, I am no expert here, but
That's okay.
I
None of us
yeah.
are.
Right.
We're all
No, but
just doing our best.
thank you for having me and for treating me like a writer because that is a good reminder.
You are. You're a
Even
writer.
though I'm literally writing a paragraph every morning, I'm like, I'm not really a writer.
Also, like, we have a show that we're writing that we started.
No, we
So
should do it.
we do need to be doing that. Yes.
Maybe we can bring all the positivity back to Broadway
Yeah. Okay.
with our show.
Yeah. Just some more
That's like all about fun. It's just all about
fun
fun.
and heart and connectivity. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Great.
thank you.
And would you be so kind as to tell us where they can find more info about you? Or do
Oh,
you have
yes.
things for them to
I
find?
have an old-fashioned website.
Wow.
I've had so many conversations with people where they're like, well, you need to have an Instagram that's up to date. And I'm like, but I have a website. They can go to my website.
My God. What is your website?
JacqueCarnahan.com.
We love it.
JacqueCarnahan.com.
Love it. And I'll also put a link to the Arts for Autism page down below as
Oh,
well
sure.
for
Great.
everybody.
Yes. Yeah, because, we're going to have new grants to give out. You can get information about all the grants we gave out, which is really,
Wonderful.
really cool. So many cool places and people that we were able to give money to this year. Very exciting, even including an off-Broadway show.
What? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
very, very cool. And then now this year, there'll be more to give
That's
out.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. All the links will be down below, everybody. I hope you do check out Jackie and all that she does and the positivity that she brings to the world because she really is a shining light. She always has been in my life since I've known her, and I know she will be one continuously for all of you if you get to know her, and I hope you do.
Aw, so
So
sweet.
thank you all for being here with us today. And make sure to like, subscribe, do all those things. And we'll see you again for another interview soon. Thank you all for being here with me today. And I'll see you again soon. Cheers.